Hello guys, welcome back to another video, and in this video we're gonna talk about RAM. I'm not talking about the RAM that we find in horoscope or the Aries, but in this video we're gonna talk about the RAM that we use in Androids or iPhones and mobile phones and computers, the random access memory. I'm gonna give you an overview of this RAM in this video. Stay tuned till the end. So RAM is the temporary storage that goes away when the power turns off. So it is very fast, which makes it ideal for things that a computer is actively working on, such as applications that are currently running, for example your web browser or any other software. So having more RAM means that a computer can work on these actively running applications and web browser much faster. The RAM allows our computer to perform many of its everyday tasks such as loading applications, browsing the internet, editing, or to experience the latest game. Memory also allows us to switch among these tasks, remembering where we are in one task when we switch to another task. As a rule, the more memory we have, the better. So, for example, if we are running almost 2 to 3 applications at the same time and we want to switch, so once we switch from one to another, the memory is gonna remember, the RAM is gonna remember the earlier task which we were in. So having the more memory helps us to switch between these tasks much efficiently and much faster without having any types of lags or anything. And even while we are doing some high-end work such as editing or running applications or browsing the internet and even playing the top high-end level games. Now let's understand the analogy of desktop. So it can help to think the RAM with the analogy of a physical desktop. Our working space where we scribble on something immediately is the top of the desk where we want everything within arm's reach, and we want to do that with no delay or anything. That's RAM. For example, if you have a large desk and you have many drawers, and the drawers have particular things such as pencils, sharpeners, erasers, whatever you have, and you get them within no time. Similarly, RAM acts like that. RAM stores the information temporarily while the computer is on. In contrast, if you want to keep anything to work on later, put it on into the desk drawer or store it into a hard disk, either locally or in the cloud. Similarly, the RAM, just like the RAM stores the information temporarily, but if you want to store something permanently, then we will keep it in something such as a hard disk or a cloud drive. Now let us talk about the different types of RAM. There are 3 types of RAM: the static random access memory or the SRAM, the dynamic access memory or the DRAM, and the error correcting code, which is the ECC. Now the SRAM is stored using, in SRAM the data is stored using a 6 transistor memory cell, and SRAM is used frequently as the cache memory for the processor and is not practically user replaceable. In dynamic access memory, the DRAM stores data using a transistor and capacitor pair, which makes up a single DRAM cell, and DRAM cell is less expensive to produce but is slightly slower than SRAM. Most user replaceable memory modules are DRAM, and the type of RAM that has an additional cell to detect and correct random faults is the ECC memory. An ECC memory is user replaceable, but it needs to be compatible with the other computer hardware. Now let us talk about DDR or data rates. So SRAM, synchronous dynamic random access memory, was developed in response to increased speed in other computer components. Now previously memory had to be asynchronous, that is, it operated independently of the processor. Now synchronous memory synchronizes the memory's modules responses with the system bus. So as computer components increase the speed, memory speed also needed to be increased. Now at this point, the double data rate or the DDR was developed, and the previous technology became as single data rate or SDR. Now DDR was both faster and used less energy than SDR. Now DDR memory transfer rates data to the processor on both the rising and the falling edges of the clock signal. A clock signal is made of both a downbeat and an upbeat. Using the both beats to transfer data makes the double data rate memory significantly faster than the single data rate memory, which used only one edge of the clock to transfer data. The double data rate is different than dual channel memory. Okay, now memory technology continues to develop. The next generation of the memory, DDR2, is faster and uses less energy of the original DDR. Now following are the DDR3 and the DDR4, which continue this trend. Okay, and each generation is faster and uses less energy. And memory standards are controlled by JEDEC, the Joint Electron Device Engineering Council, as an independent semiconductor engineering trade organization and standardization body. Now moving on forward, let us now understand multi-channel memory. Now you have often heard about dual channel memory. Okay, now dual channel RAM is a version of the multi-channel memory. Now all of the multi-channel RAM increase data transfer and speed by adding one more channels of the communication between the memory and the memory controller. The RAM on the memory module communicates with the rest of the computer through the memory controller on the CPU. Okay, and using a bus. Some memory controllers have multiple channels for communication with the memory module. Now this allows faster data exchange as the data can be sent on more than one channel. Now these memory controllers build with one channel, two channels, where we can often call as dual channel, 4 channels, quad channel, 6 channels, 8 channels, and so on. 6 and 8 channel architecture is usually designed for server. So basically when you have more than 2 channels or one channel, the thing is that memory transfer becomes easier, okay, to the CPU, which makes the computer much more faster. So now that we have known much about RAMs, now let us know how much RAM do you actually need. Now most low-end devices have 4 GB RAM, but high-end devices have 8 GB or 16 GB of RAM standard. Now you can definitely add RAM later to your computer or your laptop, but how much do you really need and for what? So here are the recommended RAM usage for any operating system or a personal computer hardware, so you can pause the video and go through them. Now let us talk about RAM speed. The numbers that appear after the DDR and the generation indicator are the data transfer rate per second of the module. Now because double data rates on both the rising and the falling edge of the clock cycle, DDR3 is measured by using a 400 clock cycle on a 1066 MHz input or output clock. Now here the hertz is actually the cycles per second and not the measure of the speed of the cycles. So basically this DDR RAM works on the rising and the falling edge of the clock cycle, so it has got a greater speed than the earlier RAMs, okay, such as the SDR RAM. Now the industry name indicates that the theoretical bandwidth of the module, for example PC36400, okay, the bandwidth is calculated by taking the transfer per seconds and multiplying it by 8. And the DDR3 transfers data on a bus that is 64 bits wide, and because a byte is 8 bits, this is 8 bits of data per transfer. In all cases, higher numbers indicate greater speeds. So the more higher number that you have, for example, you have often seen DDR4 3200. So this is 3200 is basically the clock cycle or the clock time of this RAM working. Okay, the bandwidth basically, which is calculated by taking the transfers per second and multiplying it by 8. So hope you guys like the video, and don't forget to share and subscribe. And now here's a surprise for you. So I've gathered the internet and found the top RAMs of 2022.